This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Our underground network is standing by at the drop zone to distribute.
The transmission is being jammed. Looks like the Empire came out to welcome us.
Attention, Rebel Convoy. This system is under Imperial control. Stand down or be destroyed.
What a surprise. Star Wars Sabers and Scoundrels.
Starships.
Carabast.
Yeah.
Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. The Scoundrels Special Edition.
Greetings, Scoundrels. We're back, and welcome to the Scoundrels Special Edition. I'm Dennis, and I have Darth Taxus with me. How you doing, Taxus?
Well, pretty good, you know. It's Halloween time.
That's right. Well, Jay is not going to be joining us tonight. She has a really busy schedule this week and has some things that she needs to take care of. So we're going to miss talking to her, but we look forward to chatting with her about Star Wars on next week's regular show. Yeah. If you are new to the show or you weren't listening during season 3 of Rebels, our Scoundrel Special Editions are our off-week shows covering recent episodes, Rebels, or other content, usually comics. It is a scaled-down version of the show without most of the segments you might be familiar with. So no news, no Silence Fools or anything like that. Well, not usually anyway. Yeah. So with that, let's get into In the Name of the Rebellion Part 1. Taxus, sound the spoiler alert, as this is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion. And here is our episode summary. Kanan, Ezra, and Sabine, plus Chopper, arrive on Yavin 4 at the Rebellion headquarters. As Zeb shows them around, Hera and Phoenix Squadron make a crash landing in their Y-Wings after a failed supply mission. Kallus then summons them to a meeting with Mon Mothma and Bail Organa. The issue is the Empire's new relay station. If they destroy it, the Empire will simply replace it. Therefore, they plan to hack it and take advantage of the Empire's intel. Ezra talks about his hopes of helping Lothal and his growing belief that Saw Gerrera is the only one fighting the war correctly, with both Mon Mothma and Kanan dissenting from that point of view. Saw then confronts the rebellion for their inefficiency in fighting the war on the Emperor's terms via a holo transmission. After that discussion is over, Hera leads the crew of the Ghost on the mission to spike the relay. However, after Sabine, Ezra, and Chopper spike the relay, the Empire arrives in the light cruiser Marauder. While Sabine, Ezra, and Chopper fight the stormtroopers on the dish, the rest of the crew fight TIE defenders in the air. Eventually, Saw shows up in a Y-Wing and plants bombs on the dish, destroying it and the Imperial cruiser. As everyone escapes from the relay, Ezra, Sabine, and Chopper are forced to flee with Saw as a Star Destroyer prevents them from reuniting with Hera on the Ghost. And there you have it. That's the episode Discovery. So, as is our habit with these, Taxus, what is your overall impression of this episode?
I really liked seeing Kallus in full rebel mode. That was cool. I think that it was interesting seeing... I mean, let's face it, you know, it's pretty smart to hack into a relay. You know, especially if the Empire wouldn't know you're there. Right. I thought the fight on the dish was pretty well executed. That was nice. It's cool to see the TIE defenders in action. All in all, it's just kind of an action-packed episode. You know, Saw's head was really, really, really big. Kind of reminded me of The Wizard of Oz.
Are you talking about the holo transmission?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool. Yeah. So it's just, you know, it just aided to get us to where we know this thing's going eventually, in my opinion.
Certainly. Yeah. Well, I have to say right off the bat, I'm impressed that you didn't mention Y-Wings as the flying coffins, as you usually do.
I was thinking about that, but I decided, I'll let them rest in peace.
And did you notice that Mon Mothma addressed Ezra as Lieutenant Commander Bridger?
Yeah. He's kind of...
I wasn't aware that he had that rank.
Yeah, what was he? Was he just a lieutenant or something? And then he got, when he got in trouble last season or something?
Yeah, that's my memory. I don't remember him having received this level of a promotion. Yeah. So anyway, there it is. Ezra is going through this whole, what is the right way to fight? And he's looking up to Saw and the way that he fights. It reminds me of his continuous struggles with the dark side in a way that he's just interested in results and not necessarily the means, which seems like one of these regular slides backward that he has.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Saw is a powerful figure. You know, he even in Rogue One, Jyn evoked his name to stir the souls of the soldiers on the U-wing. You know, not the U-wing. I mean the big shuttle they were in. You know, in fact, I thought that was a great scene in there when she says Saw's name. You see everybody kind of perk up, like, "Oh, we've heard of him." You know, like he's a martyr for us. You know, or he's the guy that got results. You know, yeah, he is, but he's like a hammer when you need a scalpel. Yeah, that's the only problem.
Well, and both Kanan and Mon Mothma refute Saw's practices at different points. Kanan reminds Ezra, it's not whether we choose to fight, it's how we fight, which is a classic Jedi type of philosophy. Right. And Mon Mothma points out the whole, Saw kills prisoners. He targets, his targets frequently have civilian casualties.
Yeah.
Attached to them, and she's protesting against becoming the very thing that they're fighting against. To which Saw, says, "Well, when this whole war is over and the Empire controls everything, I hope you can console yourself with knowing that you fought this war the right way." I guess this kind of ties into the theme from last week's episodes with the Duchess and whether or not they should use that weapon. And if you sink to the level of your enemies, what is it you've been fighting for this entire time? You kind of lose your soul in the process.
Yeah, but I agree with that. So I mean, you're right. It's a two-edged sword, because for one thing, you might not have the numerical or logistical capabilities of your enemy, and so you're trying to find something to even the playing field, so to speak. And with that, you got to balance. Okay, well, what's going to happen? If I choose to go down this path, it's not, I mean, and unfortunately, historically in warfare, there's been calculations made like that, which had a certain amount of unavoidable, you might say, casualties around the affected area. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. That's a very, very difficult moral question, I think, in my mind. And I think you've got two sides of the train of thought on the rebellion here.
Certainly, but I don't know. Saw's course to me seems like the illogical course, because eventually you want broader appeal and broader support amongst the population of the galaxy for your rebellion. But if you're killing civilians in the process, you're not possibly going to win that. You work right into the Empire's hands. There's a tendency to label the rebels as terrorists because they're fighting against the established government of the galaxy, and that's not a fair comparison, I think.
Right.
But when you embrace Saw's tactics, you deserve that title. And who wants to side with a terrorist? So anyway, let's move on to a lighter topic here for this episode and just talk about the battle on the dish for a little bit.
Yeah, that was fun. I thought that was
fun.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. I loved when they got to the dish and Chopper and Sabine are working on installing the spike.
Yeah,
and they actually reroute the communications to where they are on the dish, and that light cruiser shows up. So Ezra attempts to impersonate an Imperial commander to try and get rid of the cruiser, and he goes one step too far by saying this is Commander Brom Titus.
Yes.
And unfortunately for him, Commander Titus is on the Marauder.
And isn't he the guy he's had run-ins before with?
Yes. Yeah. He's been in a few episodes.
Right.
He was on that ship that AP5 was on last season. But anyway, so there's that. And then when that Marauder first shows up and the Empire goes to realign the dish, and he and Sabine go tumbling down to the side, and they end up sitting on the edge of the dish, and he just kind of waves to the Marauder. Sabine's like, "What are you doing?" She smacks him in the arm.
That was cool. I like the use of the jetpacks with this whole thing.
Yes,
like the very effective commando.
Right. And, at the beginning, when they're getting ready they're jumping out of the Ghost, he, Sabine, and Chopper are. And I guess Chopper kind of, rah, 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 noises, and to the effect that you don't need a jetpack, Ezra, because you're a Jedi, you're the Force. And he's like, yeah, but I like using one. This is his response. So there was a good level of humor in this episode. I liked it quite a bit. And then the TIE Defenders were around as well. So we know that those are being manufactured on Lothal. Right. And they're starting to get distributed to the rest of the Empire.
They're not completely indestructible, like... I at least in we've discussed the video game experience we've had with them, where it just seemed like they could just take everything, right, and not have to worry. But because if I'm trying to remember, Zeb even was able to shoot one down.
Well, that was just it. They got rid of the Defenders by Hera flying into the fog, and then Kanan using the Force to guide her. The first Defender crashed into one of the rock cliffs, and then the second one was still pursuing them through the fog, and I don't think Zeb actually blew it apart with the cannons on the Ghost. He shot at it, and I think the Defender made an evasive maneuver, which caused it to run into another rock outcropping.
Gotcha.
On that one. And so I'm with you. They don't carry that same level of invulnerability that we're used to from the TIE Fighter game, but they are still fairly formidable. They wouldn't have run from two regular TIE Fighters like they did.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I think I can't wait to see them getting some action with X-Wings. I think that'll be really fun when they finally show that.
Yeah, well, we got that coming up sometime soon.
Man, that disc rolling around though, that was that was so great, and especially with the stormtroopers on the disc trying to fight them, and everybody's sliding around. Eventually, Chopper. Okay, just remind me if I'm getting this right. Right, he was adjusting the dish and ended up sliding off the stormtroopers off to the side.
Yeah, because Sabine. The Empire adjusted the dish first, and then when the stormtroopers came out onto the dish after they got discovered, Sabine they decided they're going to go ahead and blow up the relay because the mission was blown, and that was a point of contention earlier, whether or not they should just blow this thing up. Well, they decided that'd be a wasted effort because the Empire would just rebuild the relay, so that's why they were going to take advantage of it by spiking it. But Sabine tells Chopper to realign the dish, the idea being that they can take advantage of knowing the dish was going to shift, and then the stormtroopers would lose their fitting. And you're right. At one point, those troopers all went sailing over the side of the dish.
It's kind of dark.
Well, and don't forget, Sabine caught the edge of the dish and then caught Ezra before he went flying off. So it was a dubious advantage for them at best.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that battle platform from Flash Gordon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, where it's everybody's sliding around, you got all the spikes coming up and everything, only on a much grander scale,
Right.
Really
Talk about old school.
Yeah.
Flash Gordon. Smile. Savior of every one of us. So So Saw shows up at the end of the episode in his U-Wing, and he just kind of casually, hello, Jedi.
Hey.
Hello, friends. And, as he throws open that side door and tosses some bombs out there and says, you can join us, but you better make a decision quick because those things are on a countdown. So he does give them a chance, and then they head off, and it was kind of what everyone wanted to do in the first place, which was because Hera expressed frustration earlier that her supply mission was bad because of the intel, and she kind of wanted revenge. She wanted to fly. She wanted to destroy something of the Empire. So, but the point was well taken. You can destroy this relay, but that has no long-term advantage to doing it.
Right. It's tactical versus strategic. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of the end of this, the first episode with they head off into space and a Star Destroyer moves to intercept them.
Did Brom Titus, did he die?
I assumed he did. That
cruiser thing seemed pretty,
I mean, they took out the relay station and the cruiser, but as I was saying, they headed off into space and they get the Star Destroyer moves to intercept that just arrived. They don't have an opportunity for Ezra, Sabine, and Chopper to get back to the Ghost. So Saw on the one of the Two Tubes brothers was on the U. which we forgot to mention. And I love that they preserved his speech from the movie.
Yeah.
I hesitate to even try and imitate that, but it was great. So they go to hyperspace, and then the Ghost also goes to hyperspace. They have no idea where Saw went, though.
Right.
So Ezra and Sabine are off with Saw for the next adventure, which brings us to In the Name of the Rebellion Part 2. So here's our summary for that episode. Having rescued Sabine, Ezra, and Chopper in Part 1, Saw recruits them to infiltrate Feos Station, where he believes the Empire is smuggling cargo to a secret weapon. They reluctantly agree, and when they arrive on the station, they sneak aboard a freighter believed to be carrying the cargo. They soon discover technicians with skills related to power sources have been kidnapped by the Empire. That isn't all. They find a massive kyber crystal that Saw believes the Empire is attempting to weaponize. When Ezra and Sabine attempt to drop the ship out of hyperdrive so the techs can get away in escape pods, Saw betrays them and stuns them. When they come to, he explains he must discover what the Empire's secret weapon is. However, when they arrive at the freighter's destination, nothing is there but a Star Destroyer. Saw then creates an overload in the crystal and flees. Before it can explode, Sabine and Ezra help evacuate the techs on a Lambda shuttle. After the crystal explodes and destroys the Star Destroyer, Hera and the Ghost arrive to rescue Ezra, Sabine, Chopper, and the techs. The techs then join the rebellion as they believe that their services can be of use to them.
Yeah.
So, what did you think of this one, Taxus?
Well, again, kind of in the same vein. This is just kind of more... I mean, I know they're saying nothing's a filler episode, and I'm not going to say that, but I mean, we kind of really, except for seeing, I mean, okay, let me just reset. We know what's going to happen. We see the giant iceberg, you know, with the giant space laser and what's going to happen to Saw and everything, you know? So to me, I think this episode was more, it felt more like a little bit of fan service. It kind of maybe helped Ezra find out the true nature behind Saw's motivations and his actions, you know, and that the ends are justified by the means, or the means are justified by the ends, I mean. And so maybe that's the critical element to this, in my mind. But yeah, I mean, it was just, there's a lot of action to this as well. A lot of fun little things. Got to see some Death Troopers again. What did you think of the way they presented the whole Death Trooper speak?
Well, they started off by doing the garbled speech. Yeah. And then they switched over to regular English, which I was thankful for. Simply because, well, we were only going to get one half the conversation, you know, from the commander's perspective whenever we heard him replying, and that just didn't seem necessary. They didn't have a big role in Rogue One when you stop and think about it. They, you know, shot Lyra Urso. And then later they showed up on Scarif to step in when the regular stormtroopers weren't getting the job done. But even then, they kind of pinned the rebels down. It's not like they did anything super fantastic, but they didn't have to be understood there, and they didn't have that many opportunities to speak. But they had a larger role in this episode, so I think it was necessary that we were able to understand them. I mean, Chopper speaks in a garbled tone, but we can always tell what he's saying because either someone will directly translate it, or
the inflection.
The inflection gets emphasized. You know, in this episode, at some point, he essentially says, "Oh, this is a bad idea," and it's clear as day what he's saying.
I like what he said to the technicians. Well, how about that?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
I'm a nice droid.
You said something, a few things that I found interesting. You know, you alluded that although they say that no episode is filler, I kind of got the impression that you felt this one was. And then you made some comments about fan service. I guess from my perspective, the part 1 and part 2 are kind of yin and yang companion episodes, in that the first episode was Ezra buying into this notion that we got to take the fight to the Empire, and Saw's doing that, and he's the only one that's getting results. And the second episode, when taken into consideration with the first one, is him seeing the truth of what, which is what you alluded to, what Saw is all about. There was no reason to leave those technicians behind. No. But that did not meet one of Saw's war objectives, so he saw no reason to bring them with him. And I guess I kind of objected to that part of this episode, that was just seemed like unnecessary cruelty, that he couldn't certainly those technicians would have done some area of the rebellion some good. I mean, if they did nothing else besides show up at a rebel headquarters and fix things, that's a service that could be provided, and it was just a complete waste by Gerrera's part.
Yeah, and he's kind of, I don't know, he's kind of a stream of consciousness. You know, he's got one dedicated concept, which is, I know it's out there. The truth is out there, you know, and I'm going to find it. I'm going to prove it to everyone, and then they'll see. You know, he's got that kind of crazy look he's starting to get into him. He just like, I mean, at the end, you know, he's like, see you later, my friends, you know, after, and it's almost
kind of Hondo-like.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of Hondo, except a little more psycho.
Yeah. Well, you know what this episode did for me, which I was not anticipating, is that it added a whole lot of depth to his final scenes on Jedha in Rogue One. Because he knows the Empire is up to something, creating a secret weapon, and he knows the Kyber crystals involved in that somehow. And there he is on Jedha after he gets this intel from Bodhi, courtesy of through Bodhi from Galen, about this super weapon. And it then shows up on his doorstep and fires the super laser, and that's, you know, he knew it was coming, and he had been trying to track this thing down ever since he was on Geonosis. The Geonosian kind of started cluing them into its existence, and that was the big disagreement he had with Ezra here. Is like, one, he couldn't let the Empire have this crystal, and two, he had to know what they were up to. Where Ezra and Sabine were more interested in, well, they wanted to know what this weapon was or what the Empire was up to, but they had innocent people on board that they need to rescue. And that's what the rebellion was about making a better life for everyone in the galaxy. And they didn't view civilians as expendable in that way.
What'd you think of the music from the crystal to Ezra? I mean, you know, did it seem like it was a little weak to you?
Well, I didn't really give it much thought. I mean, it was, to me, it accomplished what it needed to accomplish, which was some sort of indication that there was something there for Ezra to discover. And we have to remember, Yoda gave him his first Kyber crystal. We don't know how he got his second one. He's never really had, as far as I know, he's never had a crystal call to him.
But he mentioned that it sings like his lightsaber, you know. I think he mentioned something at some point that he said it sounded like when he found his Kyber crystal.
I thought he mentioned that Kanan had said something about that, but I don't remember precisely what the deal was there.
Because I'm thinking like something that big would be like a full-on orchestra, you know? I mean, it would be like pretty hard for a Jedi not to hear something, you know, through the Force.
Yeah, but again, he doesn't. He only has Kanan in his life, and he doesn't have experience with the crystal calling to him, that we know of. And so, why would he know exactly what this is, other than he might have put two and two together based off something Kanan had told him? You know, one of the other aspects of this episode was they name dropped Krennic, which. Yeah. I got to tell you, I know you, and I hate to keep harping on what you said here about the fan service element of it, but I really do like the way that this episode ties Rebels into this broader story as we're approaching the events of Rogue One. And, you know, this crystal could have had to be no small loss for the Empire. Kanan makes a point of saying at the end of this episode, this is the second time that the crew of the Ghost has prevented the Empire from getting one of these crystals, and the first one was back in season 1. And so, you know, nice callback to that. And so, you know, now they're very concerned that they know, which was also interesting because what was the Rogue One Catalyst, the tie-in novel that led to that? The whole properties of Kyber crystals being able to store and amplify energy, I didn't realize that was such a commonly held scientific knowledge. I thought from Catalyst that was something that was a bit more specialized, but
like the Jedi kind of kept it a secret.
Whether they did or not, it's just that it's not something that the average person would need to know. But you know, Sabine seemed to know all about that. But then again, I guess she makes weapons for a living, or she did when she was at the Academy.
That's true.
So who knows? But I don't know. I like this episode an awful lot. I had to wait a day before I could see it, and the hype it was getting on Twitter was pretty huge. I'm not sure if it lived up to all of that, but it was still an episode that I enjoyed quite a bit. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, it was fun. Chopper was great through the whole thing.
He was fantastic.
Yeah, I know. Chopper's just kind of. I thought that the technicians were like, "Hey, this droid's in charge. we're gonna do what the droid says," And
along that line, I liked it the one time, Chopper took them to the escape pods, and then they found out that the escape pods were getting ejected because they were in hyperspace because the Death Trooper figured out that there's rebels on board. So he got them out of the escape pods, and he was ushering them back to the cargo container. And that one, was it Anishi Tib that I can't remember his name was like, I'm just saying, this isn't a very great rescue.
It's like, get moving.
So they get back to the cargo container, and then he gets the call that they have to get to the Lambda shuttle. So, Chopper's like, yeah, get moving. I got to shepherd you, sorry sots, to the Lambda shuttle now. So it's you're right. Although I thought of you when they got to the Lambda shuttle, and Chopper just kind of goes wheeling by the two stormtroopers like he belonged there.
Yeah.
But then they noticed the technicians, and that's when Chopper went Three Stooges on the stormtroopers. And also was missing was him going yuck, 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 yuck. But that reminded me.
So great. One other cool thing Chopper too, he was able to actually shoot electricity as a bolt, not just like touch something. It was kind of like a projectile weapon to a certain extent.
But it was just all it did was kind of annoy that one stormtrooper. But I did like that scene. The stormtroopers come out of the cargo bay into the hall, and Saw clotheslines one. I can't remember what Ezra did, but Sabine jumped on one's shoulders and just started pelting them, and you hear that going to the door.
That was cool.
There's some good moments in this episode.
Yeah, there were some really good stormtrooper, all around good vocal. I guess good voiceover work in this thing, and even like I said, I did like how they presented the Death Trooper speaking, kind of how it converted. To where we're listening into what the commander can understand. And definitely sounded like a female Death Trooper to me.
Oh, it was. I'm trying to remember what the actress was that played that, but should have done my research before recording this. But the other thing is that that cargo hold where they initially had the Kyber crystal encased in that block.
Yeah.
When they got in there, Sabine let loose those smoke grenades, and then Ezra and Saw charged in there, and they were taking advantage of the smoke to covertly take out some of the Death Troopers. One, I surprised that worked. I would have thought the Death Troopers with their elite status, I thought they would have had some sort of thermal imaging that would have helped out with that. Yeah. But two, Saw picked up the body of the one Death Trooper and then started walking towards the other one, then stuck his arm underneath the blaster and shot him. Again, was this my favorite episode of Rebels all time? No, it's probably not in the top 5, 10, whatever, but it was a clever episode. I liked what it did. I liked how it kind of, again, it tied in what's going on in Rebels into the larger story. Rogue One and the events that happened in Revenge of the Sith and then conclude in A New Hope. So.
Yeah, you kind of see how Saw survived. Just, right. He's got those street smarts, just doing that, hiding behind one of the fallen Death Troopers. So.
Yeah, he's just a broken guy who's desperate for some major act of revenge. But
yeah, what was that line he said about losing your home?
Oh yeah, when he's lost everything, and because he's lost everything, he can see clearly and what has to be done. That was. Yeah. He's spooky that way. Yeah. He's driven, but I think that's going to do it for the discussion part of it. Last season we got to the habit of grading episodes. So, what'd you think of these two? What would you give them?
I'm going to. Let's see. I guess I'm going to go ahead and just split it with a 90 because for me, I enjoyed it. It was fun to watch. But I didn't really feel like it really propelled the Rebels as the central characters of the show. You know what I mean? This is more to me like, we're going to show you some of the political machinations of Saw Gerrera and Mon Mothma, you know, and that's interesting, sure, but this isn't, you know, Saw Gerrera and Mon Mothma rules, you know. So, but all in all, I had fun, so I'm going to give it a 90.
All right, well, I'm going to go slightly higher. I think I'm going to give the combined episodes a 93. All right. There was, I enjoyed it. When I first saw them, I thought, that was good. But then when I sat down to really think about them, I realized I liked them quite a bit more than I thought. But cool. All right. Well, before we go, you got anything else coming up this week that listeners should be on the lookout for?
Just a Halloween episode of The Geek Supreme. Had some fun and spooky moments there with Scott Murray, Regina Davis, and Jeff McGee. That should be coming out on Tuesday of Halloween.
All right. Well, you can find my comic reviews on retrozap.com. I think the recent ones include Captain Phasma 4, which brought that series to a conclusion. I highly recommend it. So check out that review. Yeah. Poe Dameron number 20, also a good issue. And the not quite as spectacular Mace Windu number 3. Those should all be out this week. Also, if you're interested in Star Trek Discovery, my wife Beth and I are recording a review show on a weekly basis, and we just covered the most recent episode featuring Harcourt Fenton Mudd in Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad. Another good episode, and that was out on Monday. You can find us on social media. We are SQPod on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/SQPod. You can email the show at sqpod@retrozap.com. And you can follow Darth Taxus on Twitter at Darth Taxus. I am at DJKVER2, and Jay is at Joyce Krebs. And again, we missed her this episode. We're looking forward to talking to her next time. Speaking of RetroZap, we are a proud part of the RetroZap.com podcast network. The network currently features 21 shows. Wow. So you can subscribe to most of them individually, or you can look for the network feed on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you get your podcasts and get them all there. So that's going to do it for this Scoundrel Special Edition. We'll see you all next week with episode 41 of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Until then, may the Force be with you.
Farewell, friend. I hope we meet again.